Welcome back to Around the Table with Stacy Smith. We're talking about the election of 2022, the midterm election, and now perhaps the future of Donald Trump. Let's continue this. We just took a break. Keith, you were saying that you think let me rephrase this. Is the Republican Party going to be divided over the future of Donald Trump?
Well, absolutely. I mean, we're hoping. Listen, as much as he frustrates me and he drives me crazy, I don't wish him ill. I hope there's some reason, for whatever reason, that he finally gets it in his head that he needs to stand down. He is a divisive force since leaving office in this party. It showed up in the midterm elections. Listen, the polling, I still believe in the polling. We know that the president's polling was bad. We know the economy's in a rough shape. We understand about crime and the border, but it didn't translate into a wave. There was, listen, we still may control Congress at the end of the election and the runoff in Georgia, but it could have been an absolute wave. And the fact that it wasn't a major wave lies at the footstep of the former president. And if he doesn't get out of the way and make room for Ron DeSantis, who had an impressive victory and who has a story during COVID and has a story of economic recovery in Florida that he can tell around the nation, we're going to be in trouble again in 24. And if we do win both houses, which I think there's a chance we can win the House and Senate, it's going to be teetering in 24. We can't have Trump again being a factor in 24, or the Democrats will take control right back in 2 years.
I know DeSantis looks like he's come out on top here, but I watched him last night in his victory speech. He doubled down on some of these crazy notions of Trumpism, and I think he's going to have to break from that and move towards the center a little bit if he hopes to have some national currency, and that's what we've learned in these midterms.
I think that the Republican Party nationwide, the state committees in all 50 states and territories, have a mission in front of them of how are they going to deal with the Trump influence. It's not what it was. Last night was probably his worst event since the time he first went down the escalator at Trump Tower to announce that he was going to run. He won't see it that way. It's going to be organization in the states and nationwide that are going to have to unify and come together and say, who can we run? Who's going to be the candidate in that area? Let me just add too, I've not heard, and I've not been calling people and everything, I've not heard any issues on the whole election process of any cheating, any scandal, whatever. That's a positive sign.
That's a great sign.
It's a wonderful sign. It was
Nobody's
a very well-run election.
Rigged, missing votes. That Governor, that's a great point, and that's what I think all of us as Americans want to hear, irrespective of party affiliation.
And how about those people from the neighborhoods who went to the polls, worked for what is it, $100, $150 or something like that, and they made this thing just work like clockwork. They ran a fair, honest election. They were in good spirits, at least in my polling place. Everybody was upbeat. They were happy to be involved in this process. And we just need, we need to thank them, embrace them for their service to the nation.
Can I just add, there was one young man at the poll. There were two polls at my location. And I went over and said hello to him, introduced myself. And he said, well, I'm here, but I can't vote. He said, I can help. I said, why? He said, I'm only 17. That's a great view of the future.
Yeah, wonderful.
That speaks to the narrative we talked about last night, where the 18 to 25-year-olds were showing up nationally, and especially a net increase of 45,000 Democratic young voters in Pennsylvania alone. But that speaks to the narrative of the next generation stepping up and being engaged in the process. So encouraging. Governor and Keith, you talk about Donald Trump, and what needs to be done in your party. And I think, Keith, you mentioned that, he needs to realize the writing's on the wall and he needs to stand down. Have any of us ever seen Mr. Trump do anything even remotely close to a concession or an admission that this should be at his feet? He's already begun blaming everybody but himself. So it's not going to be easy to get him off the stage, and it's going to be more difficult than in a normal situation where somebody owns up to their mistakes. That the only big red wave last night was the bottle of ketchup he probably threw against the wall at Mar-a-Lago, and it could have been so much better. But your party has an obligation to bring normalcy back. It's going to be hard based on who you're dealing with.
I want to get into that in just a moment. Go ahead, Keith. Go ahead and
I
respond.
said his credibility obviously was greatly diminished yesterday. I agree with all my colleagues on this call that at least the good news is the election denier side seems to be over now. We're back to disagreeing on policy and not balance. And that's where we should be.
Amen to that.
Okay, I want to continue about Mr. Trump and how he might win the nomination once again in just a moment. But on the flip side of this, does Joe Biden run again?
I don't think he does, but time will tell. But I don't think he runs again. And if that's the case, then the party has to look for the right leader.
Right. I'm the conversations at the DNC are taking place. The conversations with the president are taking place. That remains to be seen. I mean, he has accomplished a lot. His numbers, I don't think, are reflective of what he's done, especially that run of legislation he had over the summer. I don't think that the polls are fair to him. But last night, the voters certainly gave an acknowledgement that they need to stick with the Democrats for a variety of reasons that we discussed. But we'll see what happens. As Keith says, we'll read the tea leaves, and maybe in another year we'll have a clearer picture on what that's going to look like.
Let me add this. A lot of people say he's too old for the job. Based upon how he's done the job, I'll take a little bit more of that too old. He's been a remarkable first-term president. His legislative record is incredible. These midterms, just amazing what's happened here. And you can't blame him for the things that you think are wrong and not give him credit for the things that go the right way.
I have a little different take. I thought if it was, listen, we still, as I said, could control both chambers of Congress. But even if we do, there was no red wave. So I always said if there was a red wave, that would kind of give the president his walking papers. But the fact that there wasn't a red wave now allows an 82-year-old to go out on his terms. Like, you're not forcing me out. I'm deciding not to run. So that could really play into the narrative in the next
Stacy, that's an outstanding point, Keith. There is something to be said about that. When you walk off that field on your own terms, you will always be remembered as a success. Michael Jordan hits the three-pointer and leaves. Jim Brown walks off leading rusher. In any profession, especially politics, when you leave on a high note on your own terms, after you leave, it's going to be tough to swing at your legacy or go negative on you because you left at a pinnacle.
All right, we will take a break and we'll be back in just a moment.